Hi everybody, I'm Thomas Sala. I am the creator of Bulwark Falconeer Chronicles, which is a mostly solo developed game. And today I want to take a few minutes and explain some of or answer some of the most common questions I get for the game. The first one is what's the goal of the game? And the second question is often why are the controls different than other games? So let's kick off with the first one. What's the goal of this game? So the goal of Bulwark, it's a open world sandbox builder with some grand strategy elements. But it is very much a sandbox style game where the goal is a landscape painter is to enjoy building, to keep you in that fantasy of the world. So the world's alive. It's not an empty sandbox. There's other people there that might get into a fight with you. They have ancient grudges, which you can discover in the previous game, the Falconeer. So it's a very living world in which you build your fortress settlement. And the goal is to keep you in what most builder games what you have at the beginning, the fantasy where you're still enjoying making your first road or your first fortress, and everything is fresh and exploratory. And that's the phase before you get into the winning mode where you're min-maxing and everything needs to make it's there to make units or conquer the world. It's not that type of game that wants you to go out and win. It's a game that wants you to remain in that fantasy. So there's no requirement to conquer everybody. If that's part of your fantasy, it can, and people will respond. But it's that beginning stages of game. So that's the goal of the game, to keep you in the fantasy. And secondary to that, it's a game that wants you to be creative. And it wants you to be in a creative flow and not in a mechanical flow where you just want to win, which to me are two different mental states. So the controls have been created just to get you into that flow. So I want to show you today how that does by playing the game. So we're going to play the free build, which doesn't have any resources. It's just about the building, just to introduce some of the mechanics. And well, first off, this is you're flying your little surveyor. That's how you always start exploring the world, as it were. It's an open world. It's I don't know how many. I think it's 15 kilometers each side. It's fairly extensive. There's people to meet, secrets to find, etc., etc. But let's start with the control. So the main control is left mouse is moving somewhere, and again, this was also designed for controller. So try that, but I'm focusing on mouse today. You move your mouse around, and right mouse allows you to build. That is the main two controls. The first thing you'll notice is here's the build line. I just move my cursor, and it's the end of the line, is the cursor basically. And right mouse allows me to build, and it builds a new tower across the landscape. So there's three things that's important to talk about. First off, I wanted a game without any button layers on top, where you're focused inside the game world. So there's no unless you need it, some cases, but mostly while building, the interface is inside the world. So you're always looking inside the world, inside the fantasy, and not to, where your mouse is clicking on certain buttons. So that's the first one. It's a minimalist interface that's designed to get you in-game. The second part of that is that there is no... everything is exploratory. So the system decides what you build. You can see how fast that is. It decides where the walkways are, how it should look, based on what makes sense. And as a player, you get to explore that, because doing this has a slightly different outcome than this. It's well, those are mostly the same, but let's pick one a little lower. See, everything is just exploring that looks kind of interesting, I'll keep that. So that's an entire different way of building than going systematically, I want this to go here. It's seeing what you can make, which for me is closer to the way I make things and how you produce stuff. And some people ask, hey, why did you reinvent the wheel? It's not a reinvention, because this is also the control system where you orbit around and you're sort of stuck on what you're building, because that's what's happening here. It's also the system used in 3D asset software like Maya or 3ds Max or Blender, which you can try. You're always rotating around. So I got my inspiration from that rather than other building games. So that can be a shock at first. Well, what can you do for those if you're in the game? You can also build vertically. So we can go up one floor just by upgrading something. We can upgrade our outpost. Right mouse, just clicking the same build button, the right mouse button on top of something upgrades it. There's various stages, and we can overbuild floors. And from those floors, we can skip between the floors. We can also, by the way, pan the camera with WASD. It does that. Doesn't allow you to go over the entire map because that would take 10 minutes. And I want you to fly around in your fleet, which you're going to build with your settlement. So, but back to the building, we can build triangles. You see those little triangles that stick out in the interface? They show that pie-shaped pieces of various sizes can be built. And if you change floor, you get different options. You see, every floor has its own selection of stuff which you can build, and every square is just a different option. It's always the same. If you add more floors, the higher floor have what I'm calling balconies. So you're really going. When you build out from that, you get stone walls. So whatever you build, it sort of adapts to the stage you're at. And things become really vertical fairly quickly. Even with this modest little hill here, you can go all the way up into the sky as far you want, or even build, stack towers on top of towers. Why not? So that's how you build in Bulwark. And as you can see, it's really fast. Once you get the hang of it, it's really intuitive, and it's about exploration. The entire mindset of this game is different from, I guess, other building games. And it's good for people to know that before you start. If you go, try out the demo. See if it fits for you. See if you like what you can build. And when you get into the main game, explore, interact, get into fights. It's a fantasy that's fully realized. And I hope you enjoy it. And that this clarifies some of the strange ideas behind Bulwark Falconeer Chronicles. So enjoy!